do-it-yourselfers and carnivores. Today I am going to share with you a super easy, super simple, and I think super delicious carnivore dessert recipe. All this recipe uses is just eggs, some heavy whipping cream, and some water. I call this carnivore flan, but I guess this is more of a carnivore custard because flan generally has that burnt sugar topping on it, and in this case I'm not using any sugar or sweeteners of any kind for this. I find it delicious as is. I make it for the whole family the same way. Those who want a bit of sweetness, like my husband and son, generally add a little bit of honey to the top or some maple syrup. But I enjoy it just the way it is, without any sugar, without any sweeteners, and I just love the creamy texture. It's great for when I'm craving something that's kind of dessert-like, but I don't really want anything sweet because I no longer have a sweet tooth of any sort since I've been following the carnivore diet. You can always add a little bit of sugar to it, or honey, or maple syrup within the custard itself. But for today, I'm going to show you how I make it without any sweeteners at all. Apart from these ingredients that you're going to want to have is some custard cups. I have these stainless steel custard cups that I love. If you don't have custard cups and you don't want to invest in them, you can also use a pie pan, one that withstands heat, that can also go within another pan filled with water. What I'm going to be using is this. When we fill up our custard molds, we will be adding the custard to these, and this will be filled with hot water, and the whole thing will go in the oven. The hot water helps the custard to cook more evenly, and it prevents it from having a lot of bubbles and just a strange texture. To make the cooking process go more quickly, I am going to be adding hot water to this and not just cold water. But let's get started by making our custard mixture. For every egg, I usually use about 1/2 cup of liquid. In this case, because I want it to be high fat, I am going to be using heavy whipping cream. To lighten things up so it's not super heavy, I am going to be watering down the heavy cream with some water. Now you can also use milk. Today I'm going to be making a medium to large batch. I'm going to be using 6 eggs. These are eggs from my hens. And for these 6 eggs, I will be using 3 cups liquid, 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream, and 1.5 cups of water. What I'm going to do to make my life easier, you can just whisk this in a bowl. But since I have my handy dandy food processor on hand, I am just going to mix it all up in here. So first of all, I'm going to start by breaking up all the eggs and adding them to my food processor. Again, you don't need to use a food processor. You can just add these to a bowl and whisk all of the ingredients together. This is Oreo's egg. This is Ruby's egg. Looks like another one of Ruby's eggs. This is either snowflakes or blizzards, as you can see by the light color and the light feather. And these other 2 are also either blizzards or snowflakes. Those are the 2 that I can't distinguish. Now that I have my 6 eggs in there, I'm going to add my 1.5 cups of cream that I previously measured out. Now to make sure I get all the cream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my water to here. And then add my 1.5 cups of water. Okay, I am going to blend this up in my food processor, and I'll show you how quick and easy the rest of this recipe is. Before I got started, I preheated my oven to 180 degrees Celsius. That is around 350 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you in the United States. The reason I love using this food processor, which is like a blender, if you don't have this sort of food processor, I recommend a blender over a food processor, anything that's good at blending liquids. It's just very easy and handy to pour the mixture into each individual custard dish. Now, I like the individual custard dishes just because everybody can grab their own dessert. Those who want to put any sort of sweetener like honey or maple syrup on the top, they can. They can drizzle a little bit over the top and then eat their custard. But if you don't have the individual custard dishes, as I said, you can also use some sort of cake tin or pie tin and just add all of your mixture. I'm not sure exactly how long it will take with a much larger custard. You probably will need to cook it for just a little bit longer and keep cooking until it is mostly set when you wiggle it. Today I'm going to show you how to make it with the individual custard dishes. I just pour in the mixture till it's near the top. I ended up with 10 full custard cups. So for the 6 eggs and the 3 cups of liquid, I ended up with 10 desserts. Because I had these pitchers out already, I've been filling them with hot water, and I am going to pour the hot water around the custard cups. This is probably easier to do right when it's ready to go into the oven, so you don't have to move a tray that's filled with a lot of liquid. I'm just going to fill these 2 right here, and then I will stick it in my oven, and then I'll fill up the rest. You want to fill this tray as full as possible to get it as high up on the custard cups as possible without obviously overflowing or making so that it's very difficult to maneuver. But it just helps cook the custard much more evenly. I am going to be adding these to my oven for 40 minutes. Once those 40 minutes are up, we'll give it a look. If you cook it a little bit less than that, you'll end up with more of a vanilla pudding type texture. And speaking of vanilla, it's also another great addition to this. In fact, at first I used to add a little bit of vanilla extract. I still do occasionally, but when I want to keep these more strict carnivore, I leave them without. Okay, I'm going to put these into the oven and I will show you when they are ready. I just brought these out of the oven. Now, if you pick one up and you kind of wiggle it, there might be a little bit of movement, but you don't want a ton of it. If there's too much movement, it's probably not set fully, and it will be more of a pudding type texture. If you don't mind that, it's actually quite good that way too. But if you want a more firm texture like what you normally would have in flan or custard, just cook it for a little bit longer, or just make sure that you leave it in the hot water to fully set. These are almost set, but there still is a bit of movement. So what I'm going to do, rather than leave them in the hot oven, I'm just going to leave them in the hot water. I have to run and go pick up my son from school. So when I come back, I'm going to see how they look just from being in the hot water, and I think that will be perfect. When I came home, my custard still wasn't quite as set as I would have liked, so I did put it back in the oven for a few minutes. I'm not quite sure why this time, because normally I always use the same oven, I always use the same settings, and it's always quite set. The only thing I can think of is that while I was filming, the hot water that I had in the pitchers just wasn't as hot as it normally is, and I allowed it to cool too much when I poured the hot water around the custard, and it took a little bit longer than usual for the water to get to the right temperature for the custard to be fully cooked. In any case, I cooked them a little bit longer and I have taken them out of the water and I've allowed them to cool to room temperature. Before adding them to the refrigerator, I normally use something like this. I have these little silicone tops that you can stick on them. And I squeeze out some of the air, and then that will keep them tasting fresher and not absorbing the other scents from the refrigerator. I need to get a few more of these smaller ones. I have a little bit larger ones that I can at least cover them, but they're not quite as sealed. I find this recipe absolutely delicious. I'll show you. If you like this recipe, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up, and I would love for you to subscribe to my channel, especially if you want some more carnivore recipes. I have some more dessert ideas with 0 sugar and just carnivore ingredients that we absolutely love. So if you want to see those, definitely hit the notification button so that you'll get to see when I publish my new videos. And as always, I hope you have a great day.